Good evening. Welcome to Community Night for April. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Albany Civil Rights Institute. We are pleased to have with us this evening those folk from Albany State University, the Public Administration Department. We've been trying to do this for a year now. So we finally gotten it together, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you here. And at this time, please join me in welcoming to the mic Dr. Veronica Adams-Cooper.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, and I'd like to say thank you to all of you who have gathered this evening. And yes, we've been trying to have this forum for a while, and so I'm so glad that today is the day. Everyone should have a program. It's a two-sided program. And before I begin, I would like to thank one of our presenters, Miss Donetta O'Hara. Isn't this a wonderful program cover, everyone? Let's give her a hand. She's very creative, and I did want to share that thank you publicly for her. So this evening, we're gathered just for a preliminary discussion about a very important topic. And that important topic is really the state of the African American community in the United States of America. And while this presentation doesn't give us the time to go into all the details and all the statistics that will bear witness that we have some issues that we have to address in this nation. And so our forum title, Revisiting the 1965 Moynihan Report on the Negro Family, Increasing Social Equity for the 2019 African American 400-year milestone. Now let's say that backwards, right? It's a mouthful because it's an overwhelming subject. And so we begin with this brief presentation of the report. And it's about 51 years since this report first hit the nation's radar, and nothing happened with it. I submit to you that this is the most important planning document in this nation's history dealing with the unaddressed needs of the African American community. This is the brief agenda, the scholars' prior research on the report background, the problem according to the report, and then the problem's problem. The problem was neglected and grew, and then will 400 years, the observance of 400 years, make a difference and move this nation to bring healing and restoration? So the prior research was first presented in Chicago and then in Charleston, South Carolina, both last year. And these are the slides to show you. In Chicago, the field of public administration was celebrating its 75th anniversary. So that was a very important milestone for the field of public administration. Then, later in the year, in October, in Charleston, South Carolina, the SACOPA, the southeastern part of the larger body, they had a conference. And when I submitted my application, just the top was the topic. And then we had the tragedy in Charleston. And I was so overwhelmed by it because the leader that was assassinated was a public administrator. He had his MPA degree, and he was the late Reverend Senator Clemente C. Pinckney. He was a state senator for South Carolina. And so I reframed my paper in memory of this tragedy. And so what about this report? What about the report? Well, we already know it occurred in 1965. It posted March of 1965. This report came from where? The Department of Labor. So it's just fitting that the experience of the African American community early on in its history that dealt with labor, unpaid labor, that the Department of Labor would centuries later say, we have an issue, Houston, and we need to address it. We know the tragedy that beset the nation that called for L.B. Johnson to take the role of president. President Kennedy was assassinated. He gave a great speech. Many of our older baby boomers know it by heart, possibly. But when LBJ came into office, he understood that the nation was racked with difficulties of social and economic inequities facing the African American community. He charged then Assistant Labor, Department of Labor Secretary, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, with getting data to help him develop the War on Poverty program. And many people in our local community have benefited from that War on Poverty. And though many scholars and politicians will say today that the War on Poverty was a failure, I think a lot of people will beg to differ who were helped by those social programs. So in his research, Mr. Moynihan found something that was not quite right. And what he found is that black males' unemployment was going down. They were finding work. And previously, when the black male unemployment rate went down, the number of female-led households going on to assistance, social assistance, went down. But in 1963, 64-ish, it started going in opposite directions. And so he said, we need to investigate further. And he came up with this notion of a tangle of pathology. And why did he do that? Because it would set off a can of worms that we have not been able to put back into that can since then. He said, if we don't handle these scissors now, those scissors will come back to cut us in a major way. So exactly what was the problem? He said in a nutshell, 300 years at that time, 300 years of injustice has caused a condition of distress, economic, social, political, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and the list goes on. And he described this condition of distress as a tangle of pathology. Now, if we have any medical professionals in here or scientists, a pathology simply means what? Anyone? A medical condition. You are presenting symptoms because there's a virus or a bacteria or a wound causing certain things to happen. And so he basically said, At this point, even if we don't do anything worse to this population, it's going to get worse if we don't stop what has already been done to them. Now, in your program, it's two-sided. I want you to look at your variables. And I should have put it on the screen, so please forgive me, viewing audience. But the Moynihan Report variables show that slavery, Reconstruction, urbanization, unemployment, and poverty, the wage system, and the totality of these issues compounding against one another caused the growth of the matriarchy structure in the African American community, the failure of youth, delinquency, and crime, the failure of the mental tests for the armed forces for the men, and then this notion of alienation, especially for the African American males and youth, drawing away from society. And we won't get into the ways that people draw away from society. Okay, so the problem is this. Oh, I skipped one, yeah. The problem is this. When he messed with the African American mother or the African American mama, it brought a lot of controversy, because basically people were saying on all sides of the room, hey, you're blaming this population of people for what we did to them, and not only that, but you are blaming the centerpiece of the family who managed to keep things together. And if any of you have spare time, you might be watching the Underground series right now. That is a modern day adaptation of that process and that time period. It is trying to draw in our younger audience so they can get a better understanding, but it's good for all age groups. But it really shows the dilemma of that family's matriarch and trying to keep her family together. So you can't blame the victim, don't do that. So with all the controversy, President Johnson said, we will not use this report. And it quietly went to the room of what? Death. You know, it sat on the corner shelf, on the bottom, collected dust. For the next 50-something years, collectively, uncollectively, the government turned its eye from addressing this. And we know the proverbial what? The ostrich has its head where? In the sand. I love my country, I do. And when you say things in love, it says we're going to work through it together. So it's a lot of research that tells us, hey, from all of those variables that I just presented, we have to deal with them. So the problem grew, and because there were people trying, it's not as if people weren't saying, hey, don't forget about this. So in 1989, you had Representative John Conyers. He started introducing this bill for a commission to study reparations for African Americans. Is still being introduced since 1989. It never has reached the floor. He is the dean. He is the oldest African American member, and hopefully by 2019, but at least, you know, hopefully before he is called home, that it is passed, that it is enacted, because it's important. In 2009, as President Barack Obama was taking office, that was such a historical milestone, Congress apologizes for the enslavement experience. But it was with a catch. We apologize, but guess what? We just can't do reparations for you, though. So we're sorry, but no reparations. In 2010, the United Nations Working Group visited America and issued a glaring report that said, look, you're the superpower in the free world. You benefited most from the enslavement experience. You have some things to do here. In 2015, last year, during the eulogy for Senator Pinckney in Charleston, he basically said to the nation, the enslavement process in the United States was wrong, and we really have to address it. In 2016, this year, earlier February, the United Nations came back and followed up its report and said, what are you going to do, United States? So here we are in Albany, Georgia. The scholarship that exists on file has focused on those variables, those symptoms. This researcher, I can't keep telling you how many of this and how many of that. I don't belittle the this or that because those are human beings. But Friedrichsen, who is the scholar in our field, who pretty much brought social equity to the forefront, he said it's no good to know how poor the poor are. We have to do something to reduce the poverty levels. And so I'm hoping that by presenting the Moynihan report with a social equity lens, that what will happen, it will move not just public administration, but the nation to get beyond the symptoms and get to healing the root cause. Academically, social equity has a moral and ethical framework in terms of fairness, justice, and equality that says the government really does have a responsibility. And I'm hoping that the rationale does what? That it will move this barrier. I don't know what the barrier is that's keeping the powers that be from doing the right thing. So I conclude with this, because this is the purpose of this forum in historical Albany, Georgia. Will 2019's observance usher in social equity for the nation as it recognizes 400 years to actually develop a new plan for national action? That's what we'll be discussing as a community later on. Now, I'm going to move into getting out of the way because we have two wonderful presentations by two of our graduate students. Their presentations serve as like a brainstorming activity to get us thinking about a plan of action at the national level that will trickle down to the local level. References, contact information. So we're going to have these two young ladies, but I have a little introduction. You will only see a slice of their proposal, but I want you to know that their proposal was a hefty one. They had to incorporate all of their NASPA competencies to lead and manage in public governance, to participate in this public policy process. This is called agenda setting. Analyze and synthesize all of this data and information and the theories and the application, And they're going to come up here and articulate this to you, the public. And we have a diverse public here before us. We have different age groups and different genders and different occupations. They also had to make sure it was grounded in the social equity framework, and then they had to actually have an applied project. These are proposed ideas, and they're legitimate. If they or someone else puts them in place, they're legitimate. So at this time, I gotta hold that right there till we get to the citizen participation. But our first presenter is Miss, drum roll. On your presentation sheet, you'll see we have Miss Gloria Jefferson. She's going to be presenting her Greater Albany Heritage Tourism Proposal, followed by Miss Donetta O'Hara, Work Ready 2019. So let's give them a hand as they come to the podium.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope all doing fine this afternoon. And you've heard a lot of information, so we will not prolong the project proposal. As you can see, my project proposal is based up on a dream as well as a visual relating to making an impact toward the 400-year African American milestone in 2019, and also increasing social equity. In the project, I will introduce to you the name of the project, give you a brief description. We will talk about the theory to practice the project topics, and lastly, we will talk about an application example. From the Moynihan report, the variable that I selected for the project proposal is twofold, and it is unemployment and poverty. As we heard last week, Southwest Georgia is known as one of the poorest regions in the state of Georgia. The poverty rate for the city of Albany is approximately 32%, and both poverty as well as unemployment is related to education. The goal of my project is to create a small enterprise related to the history of the city of Albany and Dougherty County. The name of the project, as Dr. Cooper stated earlier, is the Greater Albany Heritage Tourism. As you would say, what is that about? Well, the tourism project will help in the gap closure of the history and the cultural awareness of our area. Also, there will be utilization of hidden resources according to the comprehensive plan, the 2026 draft for Albany and Dougherty County. Also, we will have showcasing of the local history, historical sites, museums, etc., and increase visitors to the area as well as foot traffic for existing tourists. The tourism package are what I have created, 3 to 4 packages that will be designed around the various ethnic groups that live in the community of Albany as well as Dougherty County. And also initially it will create 30 to 40 jobs, and with more coming on as the creation of new businesses are established downtown and within the area. As you can see, the project will entail the utilization of downtown areas. We have existing historical sites, museums, unique attractions, and we have festivals. And there are one festival we would like to bring back, the Pecan Festival. We had that back some 20 years ago, I believe, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed it, and I saw that it was successful. And not only during that particular festival, there was a large pecan pie baked, and all of the citizens enjoyed, or they purchased a portion of that pie. And we have the Native American Festival as well as Mardi Gras. Those are assessed. That's a successful. We want visitors and residents to shop in our area, downtown the shops, and also we want them to enjoy the cuisine like barbecue, red velvet cake, banana pudding, and also enjoy the selected tourism sites. But you can see we have some items up there which is not available. So that means that there will be the creation of small businesses and shops downtown and along the tourist sites. Also, as you can say, well, you want to start this tourism business, how are you going to finance it? Well, there are ways that you can finance a tourism business. And first of all, you can use private partnership, but there are grants also available on the federal, state level for heritage tourism. And there's a utilization of incubator services, which is available here. Local and state government, they play a role in that. Enterprise zones, as well as community and economic development. Well, also throughout the semester, I had theories to practice project topics, and from urban and rural community planning, as well as economic development theory and practice. Under the determining community goals and objectives, what goes on there? Well, the Planning Commission, they established the community goals and objectives for Dougherty County. Also, there's a vision statement, and citizens participate in this particular comprehensive plan. Making economic development happen in a small town like our area, that's people involvement, and you have to utilize the comprehensive plan. The town planning, action, and strategic planning, managing change, because if the tourism business take off like we think it will, then we're gonna have to learn to manage the change that we're experiencing. Housing. Housing is simple, that we have land available here in Dougherty County, that we have available housing as well as houses that are affordable for hopefully the visitors that are visiting during our tourism packages, tours, that they want to relocate to our area. Economic data for the small community, well, that comes in the economic-based study, which consists of the wealth of the community, work characteristics, business inventory, and the tax base. Under economic development theory and practice, the local economic development and planning progress, that is planning. Planning will have to be involved in that because we have to establish the geographical scope for the tourism industry as far as the sites. Also, locality development, we're talking about urban design and principles, the boundaries, and also creation of public spaces. Human resource development, we're talking about, we would like to focus mainly on the unemployed. And the unemployed really would be our most valuable resource, and we have to look at the skills that are required in order for us to run a sustainable tourism business. Community and economic development, we want to focus on ownership and the creation of new businesses. That is, we want to own the pond and we want to fish out of it sometimes, but we want to own the pond. So we need to think about creating businesses that will benefit us, because you saw our problems that we have, and we will continue to have those problems if we do not have a vision. Local economic development strategy, what would that entail? That would we will look at the promotion of the tourism industry. We have to select sites for the tourism industry, and security. Security will be one of the main focus, because we cannot have visitors coming here when they feel unsafe. So we want the visitors to feel safe, we want the citizens to feel safe, because we will be exploring new avenues, we're taking on a new adventure, and we want to create some businesses here in Albany, Georgia. Continuing on, the application example that I selected for the Greater Albany Heritage Tourism Project is from urban and rural planning. I selected making economic development happen in a small town. And we talked a little bit about this, but the 2026 comprehensive plan for Albany and Dougherty County, and on that comprehensive plan, it gives you some items about, we talk about our SWOTs. And basically, what's SWOTs? Just tell me what that is. Can anybody tell me what that stands for, SWOTs? Okay, well, I'll tell you a little bit about it. Okay, our economic development SWOTs of Albany tell us about our strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples and we'll move on. As far as the strength, one strength that Albany and Dougherty County have is great community policing. So that will be a plus for us with the tourism, because all they have to do is transfer that power of great community policing over to our tourism industry. Also, Albany-Doherty is considered as the economic hub of Southwest Georgia. Weaknesses is why I really created this project: history promotion and the Flint River utilization. Opportunities, tourism promotion, Black history, civil rights, and small business creation. Threats. The threats are attitude, lack of vision, not promoting what we have. What does Proverbs 29:18 say? Where there is no vision, the people perish, right? Okay. All right. So continuing on, we will also collaborate with the Albany, Georgia Convention and Business Bureau because they arrange a lot of the tours. So we will work with them collaboratively. We have to learn about the tax base, and we need to know about the business inventory here already, and identify community gaps because we do have community gaps. Continuing with economic development theory and practice, we have I chose local economic development strategy, which is the promotion and development of tourism sites, the tourism itself, and facilities. Anytime that you have a tourism business, you have to have the site selected, you have to have adequate bathroom facilities for the tours, and also they want to have public space where they can sit down and read their book or enjoy their refreshments. Also address security concerns and the welcome of visitors. We talked about that. We want our visitors to feel safe. Regional and local government cooperation, that is the tourism business. We see what our SWOT analysis has indicated. So we know that we can get the support from the local government as well as the regional, and really we want them to network because they have a network with other governments from other cities that may have sustainable and good operating tourism industries, especially like Savannah, Georgia, and Orlando, Florida. And without any business, whether it be tourism, but as far as tourism, we want to make sure that when this business kick off, we got marketing where we need it, financing, we have the partners selected for the tourism adventure. The Greater Albany Heritage Tourism Project, the questions that I have for you and for us to think about. Where do we go from here and establish a new business venture for Albany and Doherty County? What we really need to think about, what will be our role in making Albany a place where people want to live, visit, raise their families, work, and spend their monies in the city? How do we impact unemployment and poverty going forward in our city? I'd like to thank you for your patience and listening to my presentation. I will leave you with the vision statement for the city of Albany.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donita O'Hara, and I am a graduate student at Albany State University's Public Administration program. I wanted to present also my project proposal, and I will get ready, and it's called Work Ready 2019. Throughout my project proposal, I will let you know the name of it, Work Ready 2019. I'll give you a brief description of it. Also, I will explain the theory to practice project topics, and also give you an application example of Work Ready 2019. As Dr. Adams-Cooper stated, the importance of the Moynihan report, the variables that was on our program, I chose unemployment and poverty also. I feel like that is a big issue in our Albany area, and also I think that jobs, we need more jobs, so that's why I chose unemployment and poverty, and that's why I'm going to explain Work Ready 2019 to you. Work Ready 2019 is a workforce development program that provides on-the-job training from major businesses, industries, and entrepreneurs here that creates job opportunities to people that are seeking jobs and high-paying jobs in their career field in the Albany area. The theories to practice project topics. As a graduate student in public administration, we were required to take urban and rural community planning and also economic development theory and practice. As a public administrator, we have to apply those, and so I wanted to apply those, and I chose 5 topics in each area to apply to Work Ready 2019. I chose data collection, economic-based study, community assessment, education, forming an economic development mission strategy. I also chose under economic development theory and practice, economic profile, occupational data, matching human resource programs and economic objectives, education as the foundation of HR development, implementation as an HR strategy. What I was trying to say with that when I wanted to apply that with urban and rural community planning, data collection is very important when you're trying to implement a workforce development program. You have to be able to know the background of the labor market locally here, and also you have to understand your community that you're serving and providing jobs opportunities. You got to know the skills and the capabilities of the people here that we're serving, as well as the industries and what they have to offer, so we can be able to match the needs of both. And so I also chose with economic profile and occupational data. Like I said, the research is very important. We need to know the trends here in Albany, what are in high demands, the jobs that's very in high demand, and what's in low demand, so we can be able to match those needs. My example, I wanted to apply out of those 5 topics in each area. I chose data collection as one of my priorities to implement when I'm doing urban and rural planning for this project. I wanted Work Ready 2019. Doing data collection, it will help. We're going to gather data and on the high demand industries and occupations here in Albany, and also other workforce characteristics and income, using the U.S. Census and the American Survey as our tools to get that information. Also, under economic development theory and practice, that I also will be applying to this program, it will include the statistics. We have to be able to create out of that data collection and economic profile that will give you the demographics, the quality of life as far as how the people are living here locally, also the income and wages of the jobs that they do have, and also the labor market background in businesses and higher education. All of that will be on the economic profile. So all of that is very important when you're trying to create a workforce development program, because you want it to be effective. So by doing that, you have to get the research to be able to meet the needs of these people. So with that information, we will be able to create a database system with Work Ready 2019 under our research and development department under this program, to be able to use for further assessments and also presentations. That concludes my presentation. I am very excited about this project. I hope you are, and I just look forward to hearing your feedback, and let's just make this thing happen in our community so we can help increase equity, social equity, and also prosperity here in Albany. Thank you for listening.
And so I think this is the slide that was supposed to be up here for this, because that's the only slide that is going to match what we're supposed to do. So everyone, on your handout, if you would, look on the page that has the community forum overview. So it tells us that on February 11th, 2016, our U.S. Senate has introduced a bill, and it's the 400 Years of African American History Act that will create a commission to recognize the 400-year journey of the African American community. And that's going to be great. But what's going to be even greater is if that bill from Representative Conyers, if that is passed before this act, or if there's a bill for a new national plan. And so given the fact that Albany, Dougherty County, Georgia has played a significant role in the modern day civil rights movement, I mean, we're right here at the Albany Civil Rights Institute. This group of people gathered today, you have an opportunity to help the community begin thinking about how a new national plan would benefit this community, and then what is our role in making that really a reality. So that's the citizen participation activity. I was going to scribe as citizens would stand or at their seat, if you need the microphone, just briefly respond to those two questions: how a new national plan would benefit this area, and what would be the role of this community in making that a reality. And a couple of things that just came up, globalization of our economy, and not just globalization, but diversification of our economy. And so as we have a flat society, meaning across the seas, how do we now interact economically and socially with all of these citizens? And do we have public administrators in the house? We have public administrators in training, but public administrators, that's your day-to-day job. Because as public administrators, and that's why the students under my tutelage right now, they are sitting here in Dr. Adams-Cooper talking about social equity. But if any community has to embrace social equity, it is the African American community. Because all of us on this planet have a right to be here. But what we have to do is learn how to be here together in a fair way, in a just way, and an equitable way. So who else wants to share? In terms of, now the reason why Mr. Moynihan said we needed a comprehensive approach is because if you know anything about government, we have a program here, we have a bureau here, we have a department here, we have all of these layers at the national level, the state comes down to the local, it all has to work together. It's called intergovernmental relations. So they all have to work together in concert. Then you have the business community, and then you have the community. And each of those sectors have a role to play in making it work. So again, in terms of the reparations, that's one issue. But aside from reparations, we're talking about restoration. We're talking about restorative development. How do you restore something that has been taken away and repair it and make it even better? So our community could use this Albany Heritage Tourism and Work Ready 2019. If we had a national plan that would coordinate some of these efforts nationally, state, locally, maybe some of our unemployment gaps and lack of lower educational achievement could what? Could close. Those gaps could close. So what about the other question? Well, what's the local role in trying to get a national plan? Or do we have a role at all? Sir?
You know, I'm fairly a new transplant to this area.
Welcome.
From California. And when I came here, I saw a lot of disparities. And it was kind of unfortunate for me, but now after 3 years, I'm beginning to see what a great place this is. But one of the things that I know is missing is that diversity and inclusion. Somehow changing that mindset is a challenge. But I think that's where educators need to come in who accept diversity and inclusion, and on both sides, because there's a color line here that maybe people don't pay attention to, but those of us who may come from the outside see the color line. And even though I'm working with a national agency we have a federal grant, and they're teaching us to have diversity and inclusion, but trying to change the mindsets of the people to that model is not the easiest thing to do. But that's why I think as a community, we have to be open to new ideas. We have to be open to how do we include, because when we talk about tourism dollars, we're talking about not just us, but everyone that enters into the city. So in order to embrace everyone that enters into the city, we have to have a friendly approach that make people want to be here and make people want to be safe. Have that sense. And that comes from people who are open-minded to diversity and inclusion and willing to embrace all for purpose, to prosper ourselves. But once again, that's changing those mindsets. So I think there are some things that are in place now that encourage, especially starting in the schools with, I think, the positive behavioral models that they're using now in the schools that are teaching young people how to think outside the box and be creative and do those wonderful things that encourage young people to work more as a team versus this individualized approach that some of us use. And I think we need to embrace more of that teamwork spirit. How do we put our heads together in one place, come up with ideas, and then support one another in that way? And I see it happening, but it's a slower process. So I applaud. I know Ms. Mayor over there. I applaud them for what they're doing because these are excellent ideas. And I know we just got to get more people who are progressive and want to see that diversity and inclusion to the table and talking about it. And then see what we can do to encourage more people to do that way.
Okay, well, thank you. A community like Albany, Georgia, has benefited greatly from the different programs, the different War on Poverty, Great Society programs, and the ones that came after. But each administration wants to have their own brass ring. So you have a lot of change, and in order to make a significant difference, you need time. And so every 4 years or every 8 years, we're going to have a new leader for the nation. And then at our state levels, we're going to have changes. So it's really at the local level where you're going to get your greatest opportunity for stability. And so it is. Starting with our youth is so important. And so I would just, and we have a young man here today. We want to thank him for being here. And so what about the notion of making a national plan in place? And it's not just for African Americans. One of the reports that I didn't get a chance to show you is that when they did an update to the Moynihan report in 2013, guess what? The research showed that a lot of things that were happening to the African American community back then is now happening outside of that community. So it's not according to race, it's according to sociology. It's just a fact that it happens for groups of people. So if we don't have any other discussion, I would like to say this. Those empty chairs will be full one day, because hopefully this won't be the last discussion for this topic. Do let me say that what our role is at Albany State University's Lois V. Hollis Center for Public Deliberation and Participation is to bring awareness of issues
issues to the community and hope that the community desires to take up the issue. So we don't advocate one way or the other for this center. We provide the information and hope it touches someone and they'll take that fire and go with it and do what needs to happen. So what I have, and I'll leave this with Mr. Wilson, is a sign-up sheet for persons interested in furthering this topic. You will see on the front side of your program at the bottom next week, we have a part 2. ASU is celebrating Public Service Recognition Week, which is always the first week in May. It's May 1st through the 7th. We're having community conversations. It will be held Wednesday, May 4th on the campus of Albany State. So we were here, out in the field. Now we're going to be on the campus, but it's for the community to come to the campus. We came into the community. It begins at 6:30 p.m. to, ooh, that's an error. Forgive me, everyone. I got my programs mixed up. If you're interested, it starts at 6 o'clock, so make that change. Tonight was 6:30. Next week is 6 o'clock. So it's from 6 to 7:30 p.m. It's at the Coliseum, the football stadium, and there you'll see more student presentations, but that's a different group of students. Those are management of information students for public management. They had the same task, do NASPA competencies, social equity, but you're going to use MIS to create a project that will address social equity. So join us if your schedules will permit. My chair, Dr. Peter Nwafu, sends his regrets. He is the associate professor and chair for the Department of Public Administration, and he was delayed in travel today getting back in pocket. And so I'm speaking on his behalf, thanking you for coming out and supporting the Lois B. Hollis Center for Public Deliberation and Participation, supporting our public administrators in training, and also supporting the notion that locally it's only going to be prosperity for all when we all are at the table and we all do our part. So if there are no other needs for me, I'm going to take my seat, and then Mr. Wilson will come up and to give announcements on behalf of the Albany Civil Rights Institute.
Again, thank you, Dr. Cooper, and thank you, Ms. O'Hara and Ms. Jefferson, and all of you who are participating. Let me just share with you on next Friday night, the Boyd Grant Community Services Dinner will be held at the Civic Center. Tickets are now on sale, and while you're here would be no better chance to get your ticket. The tickets are $50, or if you just want to buy a table for $10, they are $500. I have tickets available for you. The next thing I will ask you to do is mark your calendar. Our next community night is May 26th, and Dr. Art Dunning will be presenting information on the consolidation. We want to kind of dispel some of the rumors, innuendo, the gossip. You're going to get it straight from the horse's mouth. And because we expect a big crowd, instead of community night being here, we're going to be across the street at Shiloh Baptist Church. And that will be on May 26th at 6:30. So we invite you come. With all minds and hearts being clear at this time, I will go to the office for those of you who want to get your tickets, and we would say good evening and thank you for coming.